Good evening and welcome to the Upset Podcast. Tonight we are talking about how do we select leaders. Coming up next. Always catches me in my mid. Uh, Once again, welcome back to the Upset Podcast. We're so happy that you tuned in on this Sunday evening, and I'm so happy to have my wonderful friends with me. These great people. Hey guys,
friends.
Well,
Happy
I'm
Sunday,
glad to know
everyone.
that she finally owned us as friends.
I figure after about 4 years, it's about time. How's everybody doing? How was the week? What's going on?
Good week.
Busy, but good.
Busy, but beautiful weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful weather.
Pretty
Beautiful
warm.
weather.
Midday. Morning and night is cold, but midday, yes.
You know what I noticed? This is the original crew besides just
Yeah.
That's right. OGs in the house.
Yeah.
I know Marlena came our second year, didn't she?
No.
No, the
I
second
came
day.
a few months behind you.
Yeah. That's right. State your rightful place.
Counting my bruises, and I said, these bruises didn't show up originally.
I'm so glad you said that because I spoke at the Great Ephesus Church in Richmond, Virginia yesterday. And I saw so many of our fans that said, hello to the crew.
Oh,
and one lady told me to tell you, Tally, to leave me alone.
Oh, Ephesus.
I'm going to tell him. I don't know if it's going to do any good, but I'll tell him.
Pastor at Ephesus now, Marlena.
Pastor John Pooler. He is
right.
the ABC.
Yeah.
That's right.
I know. We told her, Tiffany.
That's right.
Yeah, we saw it. We saw it. We didn't know about the other two, but we saw it laid to the side, Tiffany.
Yeah. She got the Superman joint that just flips.
You look nice, though, Marlene. You really look nice.
Yeah, you do. Especially with the red, too.
Hold on. Say it
Hi,
again. Tally, say it again. I want to hear you one time, Tally, please.
No, she does. She looks really nice, you know.
Aww.
Down south, they used to say she looks fetching, you know.
Fetching. Hello, Mike Williams. Good evening. Thanks for being with us again. Great. Glad to see everybody coming in. So, a lot's been taking over our timelines, our text messages, our email, everywhere we go.
Fernanda Smith said, "Happy Sunday." I noticed that too, Pastor Graham.
You notice the OGs. You notice the OGs. Those who know, they know.
Hey,
Thank
here
you.
we go.
It's good to see you. Thanks for being here. So, guys, amongst all the noise that we're seeing in the news and on social media timelines and everywhere else, what's sticking out for you? What's catching your attention?
Well, for me, most recently was the son of Jimmy Swaggart, Donnie Swaggart, the pastor down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, taking the Black church to task for, as he said, supporting that woman and voting, as he said, predominantly for the party of Molech. Molech being the god of the Canaanites who demanded child sacrifice. And they say the Democrats, because the Democrats are for
abortion.
Choice. They say that they are, of course, demonized and so forth. He went on a tirade and said that somebody needs to take the Black church to task, and he went off. He said, they're going to call me racist, but I don't care. And he was right. They called him racist. He was dead right about that. He excoriated the Black church. The Black church.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know why he did that when many of the Black people want Trump or voting for Trump. So why would he
only 17% of Blacks are perceived to be supportive of Trump, and that's twice as many as it was his first race, but it's still a minuscule number. And the reasons and the people who are supportive, a lot of them are not going to vote. They just standing on the corner, looking hard, talking about, yeah, that Trump, he gangster. They don't even know where the polls are.
That's why I like him, right?
Yeah,
he gangster, So
I don't know if it's me, but I feel like this campaign season it seems more brutal than in times past. Like, I mean, like I'm driving down the highway and you seeing these billboards. Like I saw one the other day, like, love your kids, ? Vote Republican. Like I'm like I don't understand how we're just taking these phrases, these generalities, and saying, it's like an indictment on you. Like, you love your kids. If you say yes, then this is the next step. I just feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I just feel like all the from the things I'm seeing on the TV, from the commentaries, like you mentioned, Tally, I feel like we're just going cutthroat this time around. And I'm just kind of like, ooh.
It's a technique of it's basically a technique of manufactured consent. Advertisers have been doing it to us for years, decades. And it's another form of manufactured consent. When you ask a question, do you have kids? Of course, there are millions of people that have kids. Okay, right away, you fall into that column that they're trying to manipulate.
Right. Yeah.
Manufactured consent.
Love your kids. Like,
may I say,
that's been pulled on us for years.
And may I say this, guys? I don't think I have ever heard in any campaign someone degrading a Black woman like what's happening now. Dumb, stupid. She has a low IQ. Out loud publicly. She's nothing, right? And people are just cheering it and saying they're Christians. That bothers me.
Right.
Because you can
personal
disagree,
attacks, yeah.
but you don't have to take people down in the mud who is 20 times more intelligent than you, by the way.
Well, my hamster is more intelligent than
but to do that, I mean, even if that's done by a few, just the applause behind it is like, oh my goodness.
I think though we have to be mindful when we talk about the meanness of this campaign. We have to be mindful of the fact that media magnifies.
Yeah.
Like people will say, we're living in times of violence that we've never seen before. The world was much more violent than this in the 17th century and the 18th. I mean, murder rate's been going down consistently over the last 30 years in place. But what makes this campaign so mean is the fact that there are so many ads, so many places online that it magnifies this. And so it's not the worst. Trust me, some of the ads back in history, in the early part of the 19th century, in the 1800s, were horribly mean. But they weren't on radio, they weren't on television.
Is that when you were born, around that time?
Yeah. It was, yeah.
I remember it well, right?
I saw the signs. I saw the yard signs.
He said the yard signs, Tally.
Well, Tally, I'm just joking, but someday we'll be able to do that.
Sister in Richmond, I just want you to know the next time tell Marlene to ease up on me.
She's learned how to fight back now. That's right. That's how it is.
She got claws, trust me.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah,
sorry, Tally. You said you guys set me off with this one. That's why I decided I'm just for right now.
You're keeping silent. Yeah. But yeah, we I'm sure we'll have more discussion about this because based on the topic that we're covering tonight, which is something that I think I'll just say personally, I've been contemplating this topic before we as a team decided to talk about it. Oh, let's give Marlena your shout out from Yvette. She said, "Thank you so much for your ministry yesterday at Ephesus."
Hey, that.
Yes, yeah. This idea with, we're looking at this political climate that we're in, where we're seeing some of the things that we talked about. We're asking, what do we value in leaders? We're looking at our institutions. Like right now, we all heard the announcement that the president of Oakwood University will be taking on a new position at the NAD come July of 2025. And even some of our churches right now are finishing up their nominating process for the leaders that they're asking to serve on the local level. And so it begs this question: what are we really looking for when it comes to leaders? And I often think to myself, does it vary based on the type of leadership role that we're talking about? What we look for in, say, a Sabbath school superintendent, is that different than the qualities that we look for in a president? What we look for in our conference leadership, say, is that different than what we look for when we're on our jobs and have the ability to have some say in who leads our team or things of that nature? And so I really wanted us to have a conversation. And this is open to us as the team, but also to you as our listeners, our viewers. We kind of want to know where your thought process is. And there has been some research done on this topic in terms of what people generally look for in leadership. And I kind of wanted to go over a few of them for us to discuss whether we think this is a good representation of our own our own view of the qualities and characteristics of a leader, and then just dive a little deeper in this topic, because I think it's important for us to think for ourselves. What are we really looking for? Are we falling for the flash and would you call it manufactured consent that we are exposed to on a daily basis, or do we really know what we value in our leadership?
I think we ought to start with the framework for context.
Yes.
What context? You mentioned like Sabbath school leader, pastor of a church, maybe a CEO. I think we ought to start with the framework of what the expected leader is to do within that context.
Okay. And we will. Before we do that, I wanted to look at some overarching qualities and characteristics and then go back, as you were saying, and look at those contexts and see if those things are important in these areas, or how they may shift in terms of how much weight we give those things. Just a couple of them. Now, this was some research done where they pointed out 4 major qualities of a great leader. Number 1 was integrity. And of course, we know integrity means demonstrating honesty, transparency, ethical conduct in all of their actions. For some people, that is very high for a leader. We know in some cases, leaders have been proven to be the antithesis of this, and we still will, never mind. Let me not digress. All right. And number 2, empathy. They want a leader that understands, that they understand and that they feel empathize with the perspectives and feelings of their team and members, fostering trust and collaboration. So they want to know that you care. We want to know that they care about what I think and they can understand where I'm coming from. Number 3, and I hear this a lot. We heard this a lot, I have to say, even with our conference going through a recent appointment of a president. Vision. Number 3, great leaders possess a clear vision for the future and inspire others with their strategic direction and forward-thinking mindset. And number 4, adaptability. This means that they can embrace change and uncertainty, adjusting their approach to suit evolving circumstances and challenges. Now, this is one I think is rising in terms of a lot of people's perspectives because of the amount of changes we've seen, whether it's COVID or things that we haven't expected or seen before. And we want leaders who can respond to those things. All right, next, we're going to look at some of the top characteristics. And this was research conducted by a company called Training Industry. And they polled several people to determine what are the top characteristics of a leader that people are looking for. And, as a communicator, I was happy to see that 45.2% felt that their leader needed to have great communication skills.
Right? You running for something, Tasha?
Just a coincidence. But number 2, interpersonal skills. They needed to be able to relate to people, talk to people. Number 3, 41.9% wanted them to have values and ethics. Number 4 is their personal attributes. What do they bring to the table that is just, represents them, who they are as a person? Number 5, they're willing to get coaching and feedback. So they don't know it all, but they're willing to learn and also receive constructive criticism. Number 6, credibility. 22.3% said they're looking for someone who is, and that can kind of go along with integrity. Number 7, direction and strategy. 16.7% said they wanted someone who had direction and strategy. So we're seeing a little overlap in terms of these things. And then 8th was management essentials. They needed to know how to manage their teams, manage what's happening in their capacity. And then there was a statement that I thought summed up a lot of this, and that was, leaders have to be worth emulating. And I want to ask you guys, just to jump off this conversation, do you agree with that statement, that your leaders should be worth emulating?
Yes.
What does that
I
mean?
agree. I think that has to do with that integrity.
Okay.
And the empathy, and one with great interpersonal skills. I think that those things really stick out and makes you desire to be like them because you can look up to them.
Okay. All right. Very, very good. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry. I was just glancing a little bit at the comments. But sorry. I was just
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm thinking about being in the 4th, 5th grade, and what I know this is really elementary, but I'm trying to bring it up to, I look at some of the, and I think my mom still has some of the booklets that we used to sign, and I didn't have to be elected to be the class clown.
and neither did I.
No, seriously, Tally. I want you to think about that for a second, right? You don't have to be elected to be. Matter of fact, when the book is passed around, you're a fun guy. You bring joy, but you don't have to be elected the clown. You're selected the clown. When I got, go ahead. I'm sorry, Tasha.
No.
Oh, I thought you were saying something. No. So when I look at going to high school or academy, this is how I knew that I was going to be a pastor. There was no lightning bolt that came out the sky, or
because you were a clown.
No, I've been switching up, Doc. Switching up. Okay. That's elementary school. I still was a clown, but there are people who see you, and your friends, your peers, say, you know what, class pastor. I've always been a class pastor. I mean, this is academy now, right? It never has gotten to the point of saying to be the president. Those were the guys with the A's and the A minuses. But I never got there. I'm saying people see leadership. You talk about emulation. People see you in your peer. Your peers see you for who you are. And I think that's one of the most important pieces of the pie, that a seat is not going to change who you are. And a seat shouldn't change who you are. And I know I was talking about elections in school or being chosen in school, but even if you're on the ball court, who got next? Tally, Chuck, who got next on the court, right? There are people who are on the court that have not been run off the whole day because they know who they're choosing or who's going to be a part of their team. And that's the word I'm using, their team. So when I look at leadership, I think leadership, you ought to be able to say, I want to be like my leader, or I believe this person should be the leader because he has those things and more. What I am surprised at, though, Natasha, is that management was so low. I have to be honest with you. When I looked at all of that, I got communication, I got all that. But when I saw management being low, I said to myself, I don't know. I'm not sure why it's at a low 5%, because I think it's important for a leader to be able to manage their team, unless that's probably not what they meant by it, or be able to manage it. So I know I took it from elementary school and all the way up, but I do believe that that your peers will put you at a place.
You know, I have to dovetail on to Patrick. I noticed in that chart that the expectation of a leader when it came to strategic planning and so forth and so on was lower than the human behavior aspect.
Yep.
And I think that's predicated upon the industry. Okay. Like for instance, I mean, let's use football as an example. Philadelphia Eagles.
You could use Ravens. Go ahead and use the Ravens if you want. But
how many players would take a leader of their ball club who never played football? But he's a nice guy. He's nice. He communicates well. But he's never been a football player, been a coach. You know what I'm saying? Let's go to a Elon Musk. Let's go to a Tim Cook,
right.
major leaders, I mean, CEOs, of major corporations. How much of their knowledge is required to literally run the shop, or is it the dynamics between the people? Being able to foster and nurture dynamics between people. You may not know, everything on the assembly line for the Tesla cars, but you may have a science background, whatever, but you're a good leader because you're able to massage the social, behavioral dynamics of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you're not supposed. Chuck, I'm with you, but why a leader is not necessarily should know everything.
No,
in there, and that's one of the reasons why, I think that that a leader should know something about each compartment, and I'm using GM Motors, for example, because you could take GM Motors CEO and move them over to Apple. And they should be able to do the same thing because their management skills, their communication skills are where it needs to be. They're listening to their consumers. Okay, Tyler, go ahead.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, no, it is. There's one thing to have management skills. Management is not leadership. It's management.
Okay.
Leadership is the ability to perceive vision, to articulate the vision, and then to motivate others to perform their role in achieving that vision collectively. I mean, and that's loosely defining it. But a part of it, for example, let's say you get somebody, say a Steve Jobs from Apple, and you say, no, I want you to go run GM. If a person doesn't have enough knowledge of the field that they're in, they can't develop vision for it. They just can't. And so now you might be able to manage. They can come and manage. You say, look, I want you to, but to be able to be a leader, it makes it a little different. That's why I asked. One of the things I was going to say at the onset, but I thought it might kind of upset the apple cart, and that is this: that when it comes to, because we're talking about choosing leaders, there's, I hear this in churches so often. We need to get back to, the Bible when it comes to picking our leaders. We need to do it like the Bible. There was never a place in the Bible where any leader was voted on ever. There is no voting in the Bible at all. In fact, the one
Tally, the one that we go ahead. I'm sorry. Say it again because I talked over you. Say it again.
No, I mean, in fact, in the absence of voting, the casting of lots, like with Saul and like with Mattathias, many of us today would call that magic. I mean, so there's nothing biblically that teaches us how to choose a leader, and voting was never. Democracy is a totally non-biblical expression. I didn't say it was wrong. I just simply say it's not in the Bible.
Sure.
That's a good point.
So there is that. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, have a very good evening, and we'll see you.
Talk to you later. All right.
Hey, Tasha, I'm curious. There's a comment in YouTube from a Totlin Riley.
Yes.
It may be a little touchy, but I'm interested in knowing
you must be able to look
why that statement.
Sister Riley, we're going to give you a phone number to call in.
Yeah. And I'll read it just for the sake of those who are listeners. She says, you must be able to look up to your leaders, but most of our Adventist leaders now are not worth emulating.
I push back on that gently, Sister Riley. I don't know what your experience is, but when you say most of, you're talking about the majority. I don't know what your experience is, but I'm pretty sure that I know more of our leaders than you do. And I will say to you that the majority of the leadership that I have met are individuals. They're human, they're flawed, they make mistakes. We make mistakes, but they are people worthy of emulation. Most that I know. Now, I've known some scoundrels and some scallywags hither and yon, but most of the people that I know are decent human beings that I would be proud and pleased to allow, my child to look at and pattern their lives after.
But Tally, you said this. You said the main thing. Sometimes we write, and I say this for Sister Riley. Sometimes you write, and it's words like most. That really throw this, because there are some of us who have looked up to a leader before, has become a mentor to you, that has disappointed you, and you want to put everyone in that. You want to put every leader or whoever, whatever, every person in that spot. We have to be careful of that, because I have done that before. If you're hurt about something, we have to be able to individualize where that hurt came from, instead of us, making it big. Because I have to agree with you. And she said I should have said some. Sorry, I got you, Sister Riley. What I do know is what I do know about our, and I'm right behind you on this. I work with some great pastors and some great leaders, and they are human. I think what we need to do is to spit out, how we say, eat the meat and spit out the bones. And that's what we need to do.
Say that to people who haven't read Counsels on Diets and Foods, but I get you.
Correct. I got you. But I'm on
the today. I don't know.
I'm on the battlefield for my Lord, Tally. I'm on the battlefield, so I'm working that out. We got to be able to be able to differentiate. We got to be able to say, okay, this person is a great leader here and may have weaknesses over here.
Yeah.
The question is, what is it that I need to emulate? What is it that I need to be able to say, hey, I would love to be like this person, that person, and the other.
Okay, so I want us to, because we talked about the context can matter in terms of what we're looking for in a particular leader for a particular assignment. So let's start at the church level, because I want to look at a few areas in which we choose leaders. Like I said, many of us in our churches have gone through the nomination process. Some of our churches still do that. Some of our churches have a leadership team that selects leaders.
Right.
So that, that process. When we're looking for leaders to lead ministries in our churches, what are some of the qualities that you're looking for that? There's something called experience versus potential. For a role like that, are you looking for someone who has experience in that particular ministry, or are you looking for someone who has potential to grow in that ministry? Just to start off that consideration.
Well, I have to share, many years ago when I was, in my local church,
as a Pathfinder leader,
nominating committee came along, and they had to fill positions. I was asked to fill a position that I had absolutely no knowledge of, nor interest in. But my name was pulled out of the hat, and I'm like, why?
What?
And one person said, well, you're just a nice person. I mean, what? But that has nothing to do with leading a particular department. So, to make a long story short, I did accept it, but I told them I need at least 6 months to get a hold of what I need to do with this department that I was asked to lead in the church, and that's it's on the church level. So I think that speaks to the truth that sometimes people are selected for leadership because of fondness or friendship, or has nothing to do with.
Well, but Charles, in your case, it was you were selected because of character.
Yeah, maybe so.
Just time,
yeah, I think I have that.
Yeah, I could flop in the department, but I can have good character.
Well, it's according to what. Now, sometimes it's because, let's face it, our spectrum of officers is made up by people somewhere down in Silver Springs, and it typically has. I remember one time battling 2 hours at a church, a small country church, on who was going to be the inner cities director. I said, we ain't got no city to enter. I mean, why are we doing this? But well, it's on the list, and so sometimes you're looking for the character, the ethos of the person, knowing that person, because of their decency, will mold into the role. And I'll be honest with you, in a church setting, I would vote first for character before I voted for proficiency. I'd rather have a really decent, inexperienced guy than Hitler, who knows all about it, leading out. Because, at the end of the day, you're putting together a team of people who are going to carry out the collective vision of the people of God, and character is important.
Yeah, it goes far. And Gloria kind of echoes that.
Selected you, Charles. I would have selected you as women's ministries leader.
He would have done a great job.
He would do what he does now. He would research it, and if he couldn't do it, he would find somebody to help him do it. And so they selected him because of his character.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you in that particular instance, while I did accept the position, I went straight to the conference office at that time, talked to the director of the department they were asking me to lead out on, and get some serious education about it. And I think that speaks to whether when we're trying to select a leader, character is important, but in certain departments, shouldn't experience and knowledge be an important part of that selection process?
Well, not if you're a new grad, like what GP has put in the chat. They want a 35-year-old pastor with 55 years of experience. At some point, you do have to trust potential, in one's gifts. I mean, I wanted to say, when it comes to church ministry, sometimes you only have a handful of people to choose from. And even if you don't choose every departmental position of a church, you still need a few essential ones, to make sure the church runs efficiently. And so you have to depend on gifts that you might see in people, and character, and prayerfully some Holy Spirit. You know what I'm saying?
Some.
You need a little Holy Spirit, you know what I'm saying? Because a little is certainly better than none. And because we know that serving in ministry is very tough when you have to deal with people, and in just staying faithful to what God has called you to do. So, Chuck, definitely, if there are those with experience, and then, as Tally said, with character, because you have experience with a raunchy personality that will rip the church apart, but they know how to do the job, but they would tear the church down. And so it's such a balance, when it comes to church ministry. You really have to deal a lot in prayer, so that God can reveal things.
That's a special environment.
Yes.
I had the opportunity to once chair a nominating committee at my church, having been on a nominating committee, not chairing it, not leading it, but been on in the past, I knew that when names come up to nominating committee members, we can butcher a name because people will say, well, I don't know about that person because I saw him walking out of a bar one day. So, knowing that those kind of conversations would come up, I just led everyone to say, look, I had the church manual in my hand and I said, we are going to first consider people if they are in good and regular standing. And then I went on to explain what that meant. And I said, don't tell me about you saw Susie, coming out of a bar or in a shaky situation. Don't want to hear that. Is Susie in good and regular standing according to church policy? And if you answer yes, that's one direction. No, that's another direction. Because what I didn't want to do is hear people demonize folk, degrade folk because of some personal thing they know.
Yeah, put them on a microscope.
So, and one person still punched through with, well, I don't think that person should do that because, they take stuff from the church. I mean, it's like, okay, mercy. What does that mean? Do we have to, vet that? Take what from the church and why and where and when and, all of that. That's what I was trying to avoid. Because as human beings, we have a tendency,
pick people apart.
Yes.
Especially when they're in leadership. This is a comment we wanted to. Esther Smith asked, does not our church manual state that a person found lobbying for any position should be asked to step down?
I don't know if it's there. If it is there, I want everyone to take the church manual and go to the stove and burn it.
And burn it. Yep.
I mean, when the two brothers came to Jesus and said, we'd like to sit on your right hand and your left. He didn't say, well, let me tell you. Now, the church manual says if you are looking for the position, he didn't say that. He didn't say, he did not discourage their ambition. He said, now look, he said, I can't give you that, but let me tell you, can you be baptized with the baptism? Covet earnestly the best gifts, the Bible says. That's right. I am afraid of people who are unwilling to express aspirations for things that they might perceive that they are called to.
Sure.
And that is why the leadership of the Adventist Church sometimes executes so poorly, because we don't allow people to pursue visions that may be birthed in them by God. And so they become president and they have no agenda. They don't have any aspirations. They didn't promise you anything. So when they give you nothing, that's exactly what they promised you. And instead of allowing people to wisely say, I perceive that I am called to this or led to this, and here's why, we just go in there and put our thumbs in our noses and say, oh, we're just going to wait for a moving into mulberry bushes. When the fact of the matter is that people should submit themselves to be considered for leadership if they perceive that they have been called to. So if the manual does say that, the manual is wrong.
So let me just flip it on it. I think you said something about burning the church. But no, on the other side of that tally, what if someone does feel like they're called to a particular ministry in the church, but it doesn't necessarily fit with their skill set after they have? So the question is asked, well, how do you transition a leader who is operating outside of their gift without losing them?
My second church, it was a woman who always wanted to be in the choir, and the new pastor after me let her sing because he wanted to be, liked and all that, and let her sing. And she found the missing chord. And she got up there and she sang in the key of X. And then after she finished singing, she turned to him and said, Pastor, thank you so much. I've never gotten a chance to sing in this church. And I've always wanted to sing so badly. He said, well, sister, you got your wish. I mean, because some people don't have, look, if you got a swimsuit ministry, I should not be the leader of that ministry. That's just that simple. I mean, people, there's a passage of scripture, and I will never forget it. It was sent to me by a woman named Jan, who was a friend of my sister's when I was 17, trying to figure out what to do with my life after I graduated from high school. Philemon, verse 6, that the communication of thy faith might be made more effectual by the acknowledgement of everything that is in you in Christ Jesus. In other words, your faith will be better communicated. Your witness will be more efficient if you acknowledge the gifts that have been put in you by Christ. And that means taking inventory, having validation.
Sure.
There's certain gifts. I don't have the gift of organization. I'm not good at that. Bill Hall was, which is why we were best of friends, because he could organize and I could do other things. And so it requires, that's why you need ordination and appointment, because what you perceive in yourself has to be recognized by others, and then their recognition allows for appointment or ordination.
Mm-hmm.
Sister
Esther wants to make sure you know that she said lobbying, which is a little different, because when you're lobbying, that means you're doing a little.
Well, but something that word lobbying.
It's according to how you take it,
It's according to how you take it, because the truth is that when I've had someone come to me during nominating time and said, I believe God is calling me to this position. Now I can't say it is or it's not, or whichever the case is, but you know what? Immediately in my mind, while sitting there as the chairperson, once that position comes up, I'm praying, and that's the key word. And I'm not trying to over spiritualize this thing, but I'm praying that that's the person. Now, here's the funny part. I never brought that person's name up, right? Somebody else did. Now, I don't know if she talked to that person, or I don't know that. I don't know if
planted a few seeds
before she got there. But I can tell you this, excuse me, she's doing a phenomenal job where she is right now, which tells me that so far she could be right. I mean, she could be right. I think one of the things we have a problem with is that we don't like to hear the statements that said, I believe, or I believe that I was called to this, or I know that I'm called to this, or I know that God has blessed me with these gifts. Automatically, it sounds as though you are haughty, or you're arrogant, or you're arrogant, or something of that nature. And I don't see it as that at all. When I sit here and I see and I'm talking to Esther Smith right now, and I could be, you guys could slap, just slap me on my hand. I have never seen someone, and it could be out there, that was voted to a position or asked to a position that said no.
Oh, me.
Okay.
I mean,
let me take it to a higher, because we are talking about church. I have never seen someone asked to be president, voted to be president, and said no. I've never.
I remember the guy who was the president of the Caribbean Conference, the Middle America, whatever that called. I forget his name. He was asked to be North American Division president. And he says, no, I don't think that that's where I should be. And the black brethren were upset, because when he didn't take it, a white gentleman took it, and they said, man, you were our, and he said, no, I mean, if you don't feel called to it, you shouldn't. And
I agree.
Sister Esther, I mean, Sister Esther, she's shrewd and wise. She got me to a place where it's hard for me to answer. Now, she said, Ellen White said.
I looked it up. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I mean, now,
and I'm an Ellen G. White fan.
You can't burn Ellen White's writings now. That anyone found lobbying for a position ought to, be asked to step down. Now, I do know that Ellen White did some lobbying herself, particularly in the days of A.G. Daniels and others. It's according to what is meant by lobbying.
Right.
If it means sabotaging others and unfairly trying to advantage yourself, I get that.
Right.
Yes, me
but
too.
If it means sharing your vision, if it means me going to Pat and to Charles saying, listen, I really think that I could serve this conference well as the president. I'd like to be considered for it. I don't consider that to be lobbying.
Me either.
No, I don't.
Me either.
But of course, now in the Adventist church, if anybody knows you want it, then to them that means you obviously shouldn't have it.
That's
and
right.
The way you win in the Adventist churches is to act like you really don't want it. And then people will come running and say, you got the gift. It was George Brown. Thank you very much, Sister Rosalie. It was George Brown. And Falkenberg was the one who followed up. And George Brown,
and we could see, and we saw what happened with, that, by the way.
Church
Talking
gonna
about
be quiet on that one. You know,
No, I mean, no, I'm just
another
saying you saw
show.
what happened with that. And so I'm with you, Tally. I am with you, and I'm glad that you were able to bring out one. I'm too young, but that's one of the problems
it's the
that
second time one of y'all called me old.
I didn't call. Listen, one of them young preachers the other day called me OG.
Oh, Marlena just drove that. You know, that's a good one. You put vodka in your bottle, people think it's water.
Okay, guys. So I want us to talk about some other levels, and I know we're kind of running out of time. So we talked about the church, and I think we kind of snuck in even conference leadership as well. I kind of want to move to a different sphere, and I'm going to talk about education. As we mentioned earlier, Oakwood University, there's now a search team looking for a new president for Oakwood University. Let's talk about our educational institutions.
Tally.
When we are looking at, and I know a lot of us don't necessarily have a vote in who becomes, but if it were up to us and they said, Tally, Marlena, Pat, Charles, we need your help with selecting a president for Oakwood University, what are the qualities you're looking for that role that may differ from what you're looking for a local church leader?
And that's where you really need someone with experience.
Okay, so in this case, experience kind of trumps potential.
Well,
You know,
I think the first thing is to clarify. I think the first thing is to clarify vision and performance. What are you looking for? What do we need for this president to do?
Okay,
and most people have no clue as to what the president of a college or of a conference does.
Right.
And most people don't know that most of the work of a president is fundraising.
Yeah.
And you know, shining up people in higher places for position, get to position your university so that they could get other resources. It has very little to do with the educational process. That's what your deans and your proctors are for. The president is completely different.
And GP was weighing in too. He says there's nothing wrong with a spirit-filled higher education professional. Hashtag no more pastors.
His last thing, though, he says, if it's raising money, Carlton Byrd can do it. And that's why I think Carlton Byrd may be the very next president of Oakwood College, because he really does. He articulates vision well. He raises funds well. And he is well regarded by a great number of people in this nomination.
Sure.
Okay, so that means track record. When you're looking for a leader, are you looking at data points from that person's past or most recent accomplishments? So is track record and integrity one of those areas that you're looking for?
That's what Tally's looking for. And I'm not being funny because I follow Tally with what he just said, Chuck, on the who. I mean, that matter of fact, to be honest with you, that's the first person that came to my mind. But what if there's somebody else out there? What if there's a David? What if there is a David out there that has been that's been anointed for that seat? And I think one of the problems that we do have is that we always put a pastor in that place, and a pastor in that place with a doctorate, just so that it can sound good to us. But the truth is that a conference president and a college and a university president, they still don't do the same work. It's not the same. It's not the same. And so I think that what we have to do is to start to think about what is it that they do. Tyler, you said it right. Presidents go from place to place. Hey, I need $1 million. Hey, I need $2 million, because the team that you are running, they are the ones that saying we need this so that the university can be better. Which school can be better? So my thing is that we should be looking for someone. The university should be looking for an all-around fundraiser. And all around.
This position is not appointed, right? This is one that's applied for, and they accept their best candidate, correct?
The board appoints someone from.
Yeah.
I mean, they can also appoint someone who didn't apply.
Sure.
If they think that this you have committee in the board. Yeah.
Sure. I was in a car. I remember Gina Brown, Dr. Brown.
Yeah, she would be an excellent choice too.
I think she's being considered.
Shouldn't I?
Why shouldn't she? I'm sorry, Chuck. Go.
Of course you should.
No, I was just going to ask the question: shouldn't a leader be someone also that can pull people together in a team concept to move a mission or an organization or country or a corporation along? A person who has the ability to assemble talented people to accomplish the needs of the mission. Not that leader has to have all of those skills, but be able to find people who can do that. It's like the president of the United States puts together a cabinet, and they're selecting, of course, some of those selections are political, but then there are others that are based on a person's skill or experience in the industry, and that leader is responsible for finding that person and grafting that person into the organization.
There's a lady named Dr. K from WAU. Hard for me to kind of say her name, Kaczynski, something like that.
Dr. K.
Dr. K, yeah. Dr. K. She's an African-American, and she's doing a great job. Here's my thing, and I'm calling out names. We will probably never consider her because of where she is, which group she's attached to. So I really don't want to hear
what does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, to me, to be the president of
Oakwood, you said where she is and what group she's attached to. What?
Yeah, maybe I should have said it better. She's not in the in crowd. She's not in the regional pedigree.
Oh, black folks.
She's black.
I mean, but she's not in with the
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've heard the term the good old boys network.
You can call it that too if you'd like. I mean, I'm saying that do we come together? Here we go, Patrick, over spiritualizing this thing. But would the board of trustees come together, pray together, and stop using prayer as a rabbit's foot to get who you really want, but really ask for the thumbum and do we really sit there and say we need a president that's going to take our children and take this ministry to heaven? I don't think so. We don't do that. We already know who we want. I don't think we're going to sit down and decide who's going to be the best person.
And that's why I'm really asking this question, because there's what we know and there's what we do. So we may look at the list of, since we're talking about Oakwood, but this can go from anything. This can go to Palm Forge Academy. It could go for any educational institution.
Sure.
It may be we know the state of this institution at this point, whether it's funds are low, enrollment is low,
morale.
Okay, morale is low. We see those things. Those are great points for which to say we need someone who can address these three things.
Sure.
But then there's the other side of, I really like so-and-so. He's a good person. She's a good person. I've seen them do great things in ministry. And we'll disregard those 1, 2, 3 things that we see as a major need because we know this person, as you said, we know this person, we've seen them excel in ministry, and we feel sometimes like that will translate to the 1, 2, 3 that we've outlined that the institution needs. How do we break out of that prioritizing?
Tally is a great speaker. I don't like him very much, but he's a great speaker. Me and Marlena don't like him, but he's a great speaker. The sad part about our organization is that we would take a person who is a great orator, and you understand, when we take a person who baptizes. So you just said it already, Tasha. I'm just saying exactly.
No, you're right. You're saying
somebody who is energetic, and put them in the spot. I just Googled all of our presidents and all of Oakwood's presidents, and I look at each one of them that I knew or that I knew personally, and each one of them have a different personality. Each one of them were just different to the game.
Yep.
I think we just have to stop. Let me just say this. Let me back this one up. Treasurers used to be pastors. Treasurers of conferences used to be pastors. All right. It took a while for presidents for people to realize that presidents can't do that job with anymore with the changes that's occurring in society. You know, taxes, new tax laws, all that kind of stuff. Let's hire an accountant to do this work. I get it. I think if this world lasts long enough, we're going to see that happen to directors in our conferences. You're going to see them stop being pastors. Go ahead, Tally.
Well, that's already happened. I mean, look at Tasha.
Who?
I mean, it's already
No,
happened.
but you understand what I'm saying? Let's put professionals where they need to be.
Yeah.
Right. Let's stop taking pastors and making them washed out pastors and making them principals of schools. Let's stop all of that. Right. Let's put people who belong in that seat. And I don't see a problem in all of Adventism. Instead of GC presidents going over to different countries and wooing them to vote for him, lobbying, in my observation, I don't think we want to. I don't think we're praying. I don't think we're praying for this. I don't think we want to see the big picture, Latasha. I don't think anyone wants to see the big picture of what this is all about. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm looking at the comment from Esther here. You will always find a better educated person for any position, but in the church, spirituality comes first. And I'm wondering, like, as Oakwood or Powerful Academy, these are educational institutions, but they're Christian educational institutions. So when we're looking for leadership, I mean, I'm not saying that a person shouldn't be a Christian. I think that's very important. But does that mean they should have led in that realm? Meaning, did they lead in the church prior? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, in order to be a university president, you can be a Christian and still have great educational experience, but not have led a church or led a conference, right? I mean,
it should be noted that the church, the great church of God, the great cathedral of living vessels that made up this great movement of Christ, was started by a bunch of rookies. The apostles didn't know anything. Mattathias was selected by Lot and promptly disappeared. I mean, so resumes are what they are, and experience is what it is. But there's nothing that exceeds, character that you can build upon, and a willingness to follow God. And if you got that as the raw material, then you put on top of it experience, education, awareness, and things like that. And and my friend Trevor asked about, I guess he's talking about Oakwood. Does it have to come from North America? No, he can come from Bulgaria if he if he meets the need. And sometimes, and most times, God allows his chosen individuals to make choices, and God overshadows those choices. I don't believe that everybody that gets selected is appointed by God. I think God allows his children to, just like when you tell your child, go put on some clothes, we're going to the store. You don't say, put on this T-shirt. No, put on those drawers. You just tell them to go up and pick something. And they come down, wearing a pink.
And you wish you had told them.
But when you look at him, you realize I'm late. You say, Lord, you look like do why did he? But let's go. And you go with what they got. And that's what God needs to do.
Tally, and I'll tell you who said this. Al Johnson's wife. He said, what's her name? I'm sorry?
Al Johnson?
Yeah, on Paula. Yeah, Al Johnson's wife. She said this to me. She said, you got to be careful of what's God's permissive will and what's his perfect will. We have to be careful of that, because God allows us, and that's what you were just saying when you Tally just now. Yeah. I believe that if I'm going to be in God's will, I prefer to be in his perfect will than his permissive will.
I prefer that too.
And so the reason why I'm saying that also is that just because we want someone to be in a seat doesn't mean that that's God's perfect will.
Right.
God will say, okay, Trump. I mean, did I say Trump? Okay. Sorry, y'all. My fault.
I have a question.
Oh, we just lost our 501c3.
Yeah, right.
I have a question for the pastors that are among us. When a pastor is selected or processed, if the church is processed for a pastoral leader,
Process, Tally. Process.
what
I
is
gotta go, y'all. Let me go.
what what is that process? You hear churches mumble and grumble sometime because they feel victimized by
Tasha,
the
mute Tally.
processing.
Mute him.
Any questions?
So
Any answers on that?
you're asking, Charles, you're asking, just to be clear what you're asking, what is that
Yeah, in other
process?
words, I'm trying to zero in on any conference, not just this conference. The conference is part of the conference's responsibility is to provide pastors to its churches.
Mhm.
Based on what?
So let me answer this from, and you guys can answer from experience, but I'll answer from a process standpoint.
Hold on, I'm gonna mute Tally real quick. Go ahead.
What on paper is supposed to happen. So, when there's a vacancy in a church, meaning a pastor goes to another place, or maybe there's time for a transition to take place based on some of the things that may be happening with a pastor or the current state of a church. The administration, usually ministerial, department is heavily involved with bringing together leaders or the congregation of the church to have them complete a survey or answer some questions about what they would like to see, what they feel is a good match for their church. They feel the state of the church is, what they consider would be, what they think would be nice for the church at that point in the church's not say history, but where they are right now. And then that information is gathered and reviewed. And then the administration or the president is looking to see who do we have that can fulfill what the church has shared they feel. Now, I don't know the percentage of how much that is weighted over what the administration feels, but that is the process. That's the processing. That's my understanding of how it happens, and you guys can tell me from your side what you experience. But that's what I.
Well, it's 7:02, and that means that.
So Gloria helped you out. She said, based on that church survey, the church level feels like it's an exercise in futility. So
I have known of churches who were going to be processed, and they were insulted by the fact that they knew
who was already
who
coming.
The conference already was planning to send. I know of situations like that.
Yeah,
it was for next time.
Yeah, every once in a while, but it's a good idea. I don't think it's found its footing yet, but it's a good idea to try to evaluate the needs of a church and match it with the capacities of a minister. It's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did
Paul was my brother. I know time's going. My brother was a ministerial director of the North of Potomac Conference,
also known as Allegheny South. Continue.
Yes, that's it. That's right. And the way they process, I'm not saying theirs is great or greater than or whichever. The church is so involved in it that it's easy for the church to take blame if it was a bad move.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? They can take the fault.
Don't they request who they want? I think
they do.
They request who they want.
Yeah, and in some cases, they are the ones who interview them. I know that. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say it doesn't happen. That's not how regional conferences will work.
Correct, and I understand. Well, the regional side of Allegheny East, the North, but but it's true.
Oh.
And I'm not saying to do it that way. I'm not saying that. I think when we go back to leadership, one of the things that we need to see, whether it's churches moving leaders, I like to call it that, churches moving leaders, or whether it's the school. I'm very invested in Oakwood University. I care. I'm on with my brother at 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock Central and Eastern time, praying for Oakwood for the next 30 days. I really do. I do believe that there is a there should be a spiritual connotation to this, and don't use spirituality to get what you want. You ought to be able to listen to God and listen to what his moves are going to be. I think we ought to do that.
I just don't, I don't want to interrupt you, but I feel like we have a hard time where to draw that line.
Sure.
Because we will pray. And don't get me wrong, I definitely believe in prayer.
Mm-hmm.
But we will use it as a cover for, like we were saying, in terms of things that we've already decided, and put things in place for it to happen. And then we continue to want to pray about it, so that from the outside to everyone else, it comes off as though this was a matter of prayer. And I often struggle with, where is that line where this is really something that's been committed to prayer, or this is something we want to shroud or cover as though it's in prayer. Sometimes I struggle with whether we know the difference, because we will get off our knees, go somewhere else, get on a phone call, and be like, all right, is the plan still the plan? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's like, how do we do that? Like,
we're trying to co-opt God through our praying.
Sure.
And I'm doing a seminar on prayer shortly. You should not pray for things that God has already told you. When if God says, Balaam, these are my people, leave them alone. Don't pray and ask God, well, suppose they give me $500. I mean, don't pray for what God has already told you. That's first thing. Secondly, don't ask God to do something that you have the power to do. If you got cheese and bread and lunch meat, don't ask God, Lord, I'm hungry. Would you send me something? I mean, when you can make your own sandwich, and so what prayer is for is to not inform God of what needs to be done.
That's right.
And it's not, it is to place yourself to a place where God can inform you of his will. If it is different from what you're already planning, we should bring to God the things on our mind. And, he wants to give us the desires of our heart. If you don't have any desires, then God is standing and waiting for you to come up with something. But we should bring these things to God so that, because we're not informing God, we're opening ourselves so that God can inform us if the need is there. Other than that, what your hand finds to do, dadgummit, do it. Go for it.
That's a curse, Tally. I'm just letting you know that's a vegetarian curse.
It was actually Hebrew. It means may pat the breast. And so when it comes to choosing a president of local college, they should pray for wisdom and counsel and guidance. But they shouldn't pray that God would send them a president. They should pray for wisdom and guidance. Come together, lay out what they see as the vision and the need, and then consider the individuals there. And then when they come up with something, say, Lord, we see the name of Marlena, and we believe that she is the person, can you bless this choice? I mean, and that's, that's how you pray. But we like is magic, and magic is not religion.
You need to do a show on prayer. Sorry, I'm putting that down. Go ahead, Charles.
Well, let me just throw another curveball.
Oh boy.
When you get to a point where you have to consider in any situation leadership change. It could be a church, it could be a conference, it could be a lumber yard. I mean, it could be any organized, functional business or corporation or group, profit or nonprofit. When the question comes up for any group to say, we need leadership change, what provokes that? Why do we say, oh, we need a different pastor? Oh, our conference president, I don't know. We need a change. We need a change in the college president. We need a change in what prompts that? What are we looking for? Do we feel that leadership has failed to fulfill or lead the mission according to the mission statement of the organization? Have they failed? What prompts us to look for new leadership?
I'd say lack of growth.
Yeah. Vision, right? Lack of success.
Discontentment with the growth, discontentment with a perception that the vision has gone off rails, but it's discontent. Oftentimes discontentment is based upon misdirected expectation. It's like when you get married and you don't really know what you're really thinking that marriage is going to be, but in the back of your mind, you got images. And then when they're not met through the marriage, you're discontented. And it's not because the person is bad or wrong. It's because your expectations were in left field and you don't know how to get back to embracing the
Right.
joy of the reality you have. But and like all of us who have pastored know that our members expect things that are often unrealistic.
Sure.
And they become discontented when their unrealistic expectations aren't met. So half of it's discontentment, and a lot of times that's based on expectations that have gone awry.
And I
And
do.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Also also not communicating. That was the number one factor that you played out earlier. And one of the things that brings about discontentment, Tally, is not knowing
Yeah.
because you're not communicating that thing. Shameless plug. I do stock market, and in the stock market, the CEOs and the CFOs are constantly putting out what's going on in the company, what's happening in the company. Most of it is supposed to excite you, but the other side of it is, even if it's going wrong, it should be something that's communicated so that you'll know.
That's how you build trust and
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
accountability. And I was going to say too, sometimes when we do see those, discontentment or whatnot, instead of throwing the leader out immediately, it may just be a case where that can be an area where they can receive more training or more guidance. Or sometimes, in some cases,
The problem is we
Don't
it's
say it.
because we believe in magic so much, and and like children, our leaders are given to us without much of our input. When we become discontented or our expectations have failed, rather than working it out because we have participated in what we have, we just go back and say, "Daddy, give me something else," and we don't work things out, and because we
yeah.
haven't participated and created them, we have to do better. Doggone it, we have to do better, and I know that we can if we just stop playing the magic game. When somebody wants to be president of a conference, they should submit their name, and there should be forums where they share their platform so that you can evaluate it and ask them questions so that they don't, jump up on a Sunday and say, I am so shocked by this. I wasn't prepared, and pull out of their pocket a 15-page speech. Yeah, I mean, we got to do better than this.
And I just want to add to what Tally is saying. I mean, the Bible says that faith without works is dead. And so when you pray, you've got to come back to the works, right? What do? Then you have your criteria of what is it that you're using to choose someone. And as he said, you choose the best and trust God to lead you in choosing the best. Other than you're just praying. I mean, you need someone with more than just a prayer ability, especially when you're talking about leading millions of dollar corporations. You have to have someone with skills and knowledge as to what to know how to do, not to just know how to preach, right? He's got to have some other skills, and so you have to have some type of criteria to follow, at least what you're looking for, right? And then go from there. So I agree with Tally there.
Yeah.
You agree with Tally? Did she just say she agreed with Tally?
What's today? October
Writing
23rd?
it in small letters is in a 6-point font. But
Yeah.
So I want to tell you, family, when I look at, and I went all the way from elementary school to academy and now to switch over to church and conference, and I care so much about Oakwood University. It's my heart. And I know we don't have time for this, but I'm praying about our country. And it's true, Tally, our country has been in worse situations before. Let's just be honest with you. This is not something brand new off the back. It's a little brutal, as we used those words earlier. It's a little brutal, but we've been here. We've been here before. I submit, not the magic side of it, Tally, and not the rabbit's foot side of it, the lucky side of prayer. But I do think that, we do need to sit at the table and wait on God. for him to give us what those answers are. Not the person, like you said, Tally, because I never thought about that. Not the person, but man, if you ask for wisdom, the Bible says he'll give it to you. He'll give it to you. And I mean, that's one thing that I recognize in the Bible. Man, you could be, what's your word, dag nabbit? You could be the worst. Once you ask God for wisdom, he will bestow it to you. Why not ask him for wisdom on these decisions that we make? And I think we'll be okay once that's done.
And Pat, I agree with you so much. And I want us to understand as Christians, right? When you're talking about organizations, because the comment was that, we're using worldly measures. We're using God. God is going to direct us, but you still have to have a process of whom you are selecting. It can't just be someone with Holy Spirit only, even though the Holy Spirit is necessary, but there has to be skill as well. Now, we're talking about teaching skill when it comes to a church level. When you are a university president, there's some things that you have to know you got to keep that school running. You have to make sure tuition continues to come in. Enrollment is growing. You have to make sure you have the right professions, right, to gather interest from your community. It is so much more involved. I can't do that job. And I know I've got a lot of good skills that God has given me. And so you have to make sure that God is leading you with the right people. I like what someone said. It doesn't have to be just an appointed position. We're all Christians here. And so if you put it out there, hey, people can come in, and then you depend on the wisdom of God to lead you within the choice with what you're already, the skills that you're looking for in a person. But it can't just be empty. You've got to have some foundation of what you're looking for.
Well,
wow,
we can really go in, because you made me think about so much right now, just with those comments in terms of how God prepares us when we were born for certain things, and when we're in alignment with how God is leading us throughout our lives, he can put us in certain situations where we are prepared to take on leadership roles because he's been preparing us. I mean, from when we were in our mother's wombs. But
one of the things that stands out amongst all the definitions of leader and leadership is fostering an environment of collaboration and trust.
Oh, sure, man.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Let's just do part 2, man, because we ain't done.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, yeah, this is actually a precursor. This show this week is a precursor to next week, because we did not talk about in this episode how we select the leader of the United States of America. How do we make these decisions as Christians? Do we use some of the same principles that we talked about on these various levels? And so we're not going to go into that conversation right now, but we will talk a little bit about it next week. So, let's think about some of the things we outlined this evening and see how it translates to our discussion next week, when we would talk about how do we select the leader of our country. And we're also going to talk about why voting matters, because some people don't believe we should vote. And so we'll talk about all of that next week. So
are we going to talk about how we select?
Yes.
Or how we elect?
Oh man, come on, Justin. What are you doing?
Just
because I think in the context of presidential election, a system is so flawed that some people feel that their vote really does not reflect much of them as an individual.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that and why that is not always as it seems. So yeah, we'll talk about the elect and select and all the things, as they say. But thank you guys for this great discussion about leadership. I mean, it has me personally, once again, thinking about who do I follow and why do I follow them? What do I value individually? So thank you.
Shout out to Roger Wade, the communications director of South Central Conference.
Hey, Roger.
And condolences to him also for his father passed. He just came back from
And his brother.
And his
Really
his brother.
Yeah.
And his brother.
Thanks for
We're
tuning
praying
in,
for you, man.
Roger.
We're praying for you, bro.
I'm gonna talk
Good
about it
man.
next week. But yeah. Orville, yeah, we'll let you handle the comments. Thank you. All right, good people. Once again, thanks for another spirited conversation. We appreciate all of your input. Thank you to those who are listening and commenting. We also appreciate yours as well. And we'll be back next week to continue this conversation as we, some of you have already voted, but for those who are seeking, like, how do I even make a decision about my next leader? So tune in next week, same time, same place, because if it's Sunday,
it's time for Batman. Isn't that what he used to say?
That was Sabbath morning. Oh, my fault. It's the Upset Podcast.
That's right. Thank you very much.
Podcast.
See you next week, everybody. Have a
Take care,
great
everybody.
week.
Thank you.
Right.